I never thought I'd be one of those people. The ones who scroll through their partner's phone while they sleep. Who question a little comment in a group chat like it's a confession. Who go from 20 years of trust to suspicion. And yet, here I am. I'm 44. My wife is 42. We've been married for 2 decades. 2 solid decades. We raised kids together, built a home, had open, honest conversations. We never had passwords or secrecy. Her phone was my phone. Mine was hers. That's how we always lived, no drama, no paranoia. So when I say this hit me from nowhere, I mean it. No affair, no secrets, no betrayals, not that I knew of. But over the last few months, something began to shift. Nothing massive, just little things. She started going out more with her colleagues. And again, I wasn't bothered by that. She's always been deeply involved with her work, leading multiple projects, pushing hard with her team. I knew they were hitting milestones and had a lot to celebrate. I thought, good for her. But then came the drinking. It started subtly. She'd come home tipsy, maybe giggly. Once in a while, fine. But then it became every time. 4 or 5 times in as many months, she'd come back fully drunk. Not just a few drinks, I mean loud, messy, stumbling drunk, tossing her stuff on the floor, breath soaked in alcohol, clumsy, careless. What worried me most wasn't even the drinking itself. It was the driving. She'd drive home that way, at 42, after years of being responsible. That's when I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I told her the truth, that I was worried, that I couldn't sleep when she was out like that, that I didn't want to be the guy texting, "Are you alive?" Every Friday night. I asked her gently, respectfully, "Can you at least take a taxi next time? Or let me know when you're coming back?" And that's when something in her snapped. She got defensive, said I was trying to control her, said I was overreacting, claimed she wasn't even drunk. She denied it, even when I was right there, lying awake in bed, listening to her slam the door, knock things over, mumble to herself as she got into pajamas. I didn't want to fight. I just wanted to be heard. I thought we were past the phase of needing to prove things. But that reaction, that anger, it didn't match the conversation. That's when the doubt crept in. I didn't go looking through her phone out of jealousy. I swear I didn't. It was something quieter, something that just felt off, like a little change in the air before a storm. It happened late one night. She was asleep beside me, finally back from another work celebration. The house was dark, the kids were asleep, and I couldn't. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, her soft snoring beside me, while my mind wouldn't stop turning over everything. I wasn't looking to find something. I just needed clarity, some explanation for why things felt different. I reached for her phone. There was no password. We've never had those. It wasn't about secrecy, it was convenience, habit, trust. And trust is what I told myself I still had, as I held her phone in my hand and opened it. I wasn't hunting for cheating, I swear. I know what that feels like. The frantic, paranoid scrolling, this wasn't that. I just wanted to understand. Why the drinking? Why the defensiveness? Why the shift? I started with messages from her work friends. The team she's been hanging out with lately, the ones who always go out for drinks after milestones. There was a main work chat, nothing suspicious there. Updates, memes, reminders about meetings. Then I saw another one, a smaller group, private, just 4 people, my wife, another woman I know she's close with at work, and 2 men, their bosses. I'd never seen this chat before, and something about it felt off, not scandalous, not dirty, just too casual, too close. The 4 of them talked more like old friends than colleagues. They made plans outside of work. They shared private jokes. They even had a nickname for their little group. They were always the last ones to leave the bar. That much was clear. One of the men, one of the bosses, seemed to have a thing for teasing. He'd send little jokes. Not crude, but suggestive. Stuff like, "When you're free, come find me in my little dark corner winking face." Or, "Careful, that dress might cause a productivity crisis." It was light, teasing, almost innocent. My wife, She never responded to those messages in the same tone. She'd keep things neutral, laugh it off, steer the conversation back to work or the group. I didn't see any flirting from her. No hearts, no suggestive replies. If anything, she seemed unbothered by the comments, like she'd heard them 1,000 times before. But that's what bothered me, because she never shut it down either. She never said, "Hey, that's inappropriate." Never said, "Let's keep it professional." It was like, it was normal, and that didn't sit right with me. Still, I kept scrolling. Most of the messages were harmless. Plans for team outings, comments about projects, memes, and then I saw it. The message I haven't been able to stop thinking about ever since. They were planning another night out. As usual, she and her friend were getting ready at the friend's place. Apparently, they always did this. Changed out of their work uniforms, touched up their makeup, had a bite to eat before meeting the bosses at the bar. My wife sent a picture to the group. A small plate of snacks, 2 glasses of wine. Nothing fancy, just a casual little pre-party meal. And then she wrote, "The aperitif is at friend's place wine glass. At least we're cheap dates, woman dancing, woman dancing." That line hit me in the chest. Hard. Cheap dates. It echoed in my head. I reread it 5, 10, 20 times. Why that phrase? Why call yourself a cheap date in a group chat with your bosses? The wording, the tone, the red dress emojis, the wine, the context. And suddenly it wasn't just a joke. It was a signal. A little crack in the image I thought I knew. Was she trying to be funny, flirty, downplay the situation? Or was it just an innocent phrase, and I was the one twisting it into something darker? I asked myself that all night. Still do every night since. I sat with that message for hours, just staring at it, reading it again and again. Cheap dates, woman dancing, woman dancing. Was it harmless? Was it careless? Was it something more? The next morning, I didn't say anything. Not right away. I wanted to be calm. I wanted to be fair. But I couldn't unsee it. And I couldn't pretend it didn't bother me. So that night, when the kids were asleep and the dishes were done and the house was quiet again, I brought it up. "Hey," I said, careful. "Can I ask you something without you getting upset?" She gave me that tired look. The one that says, "I know this isn't going to be fun. I saw that group chat from work. The one with your friend and the 2 guys." She froze for half a second. Just half. Then softened. "Oh," she said. "That one." I told her, calmly, that I'd looked at her phone. That I didn't go snooping, I just needed to understand why things felt strange lately. I didn't accuse. I didn't yell. I asked her one thing. "What did you mean by cheap dates?" She blinked and laughed. "Oh my God, that's what this is about." She said it like I just asked her if she was a Russian spy. She rolled her eyes and said, "It's a joke. About the food. About how we already ate before going out. That's all." "Yes," she said, more annoyed now. "It's a saying. It's just a stupid English joke." I reminded her what the context looked like. The photo of wine and snacks, the dresses, the bosses footing the bill. She sighed hard. "You're overthinking it." I said, "Maybe, but why use the word date? Why not say we're low maintenance, or we're not expensive or something?" She shrugged. "Because it's an expression. It's just how people talk." And then she added, "You know English isn't my first language. You're twisting it. You're making it weird." That's when I felt the floor beneath me shift. Because yes, we're from Quebec. English is technically a second language, but we both speak it fluently. We've been watching English shows, reading English news, listening to English podcasts for years. She knows what the word date means, and she knows what it implies, especially in a conversation with 2 men who are your bosses, one of whom flirts with you regularly. But I didn't want to accuse her of anything she hadn't done. And yet, I couldn't shake the discomfort. She said, "It was just a joke. About the picture. That's all. You're reading into it." I wanted to believe that. God, I still want to believe that. But it's not just about the phrase. It's about the pattern. The staying out later. The drinking. The refusal to take a taxi. the new closeness with coworkers, the flirty comments she tolerates, the defensiveness, and now, this odd little message that feels like a spark in dry grass. I asked her gently, "Do you think it's appropriate? That kind of message?" She looked at me, not guilty, not embarrassed, just tired. She said, "It's work. We're friends. You're turning this into something it's not." Maybe I am, but it's hard not to when the lines start to blur. After that night, something between us changed. Not in a loud, explosive way. Not in some soap opera moment where someone storms out or slams a door. No, it was quieter than that. Colder. Like a window left cracked open during a snowstorm. You don't notice the chill at first, but suddenly, everything feels wrong. I didn't push the issue again. I told myself, "You asked." She answered, "Let it go." But I couldn't. Not entirely. Because now that phrase, cheap dates, lived in my head. Not just as words, but as a symbol of everything I hadn't noticed before. Suddenly, I started replaying old things. Little moments, forgotten conversations, harmless stories that now felt off. Like when she mentioned how she stayed late with the team again. Or when she brushed off my offer to pick her up with a quick, "I'm fine. Don't worry." Even the way she'd say their names. How often they came up in casual talk. Her friend, I never had a problem with. They've been close for years. But these two guys, the bosses, were new. And they seemed to be everywhere now. I remembered how once, she said, "Oh, boss one is hilarious. He always has these dark little jokes." Back then, I smiled and said, "Sounds like a fun team." Now I wonder, was he already flirting then? Were they already this close? And I hated myself for wondering, because 20 years of trust don't just vanish. Or at least, they're not supposed to, but they were eroding, quietly, and it didn't help that she didn't seem to notice. She went on as normal. Same laughs, same routines. But me, I was shrinking inside, smiling less, sleeping worse. I kept thinking, what if this is how it starts? Not an affair, not sex, but something else, something more dangerous. Emotional drift, little jokes, shared drinks, inside humor, the kind of closeness that isn't technically cheating, but still replaces you in someone's heart. I thought about how easily people fall, not because they're unhappy at home, but because someone else makes them feel interesting, seen, desired. That cheap date line? Maybe it was a joke. Maybe she didn't mean anything by it. But the fact that she felt so comfortable making that joke in that group, that's what got me. It said something about the tone of their relationship, about the way she saw herself and them when I wasn't around. And I started asking myself, who is she when I'm not there? Because the woman in those chats, the one sipping wine, laughing with two older men, calling herself a cheap date in red dress emojis, that didn't feel like my wife. Not the one I knew. Not the one who used to blush when I complimented her. Not the one who hated parties and left after one drink. I didn't recognize her anymore. And worse, she didn't seem to notice I was disappearing. If you'd asked me 6 months ago what I thought about my wife's work friend, I would have said she was harmless. Sweet even. They'd known each other for years. Shared inside jokes. Same sarcastic sense of humor. I always figured it was good for my wife to have someone like that at work. Someone to keep things light in a high-pressure environment. Now, I wasn't so sure, because every time I looked at that group chat, I noticed something. It was always the same four. Not the whole team. Not the rest of their department. Just the two women and the two bosses. And every time they planned a night out, it was the same pattern. The women would get ready at the friend's house. They'd share photos, light drinks, food, outfits, and then they'd meet the men who always paid, always hosted, always kept the drinks coming. It was a ritual now, and it felt exclusive. That friend, the one who was supposed to be just a supportive colleague, started to seem more like a wingwoman, a buffer, a kind of shield between harmless fun and something else. She was the one who laughed the loudest at the boss's jokes, the one who posted the most suggestive memes, the one who called the group their after-hours crew. The one who'd send heart emojis and winks and gifs of girls dancing. It was always a joke. Always just fun. But jokes can carry truth. And then there was him. The one who flirted. I'd never even met the guy. I didn't know what he looked like, how old he was, if he was married. All I knew was his tone. He was clever, confident, the kind of guy who knows just how far he can push without crossing the line. The kind who says, "You ladies are trouble. Lucky I'm here to supervise winking face." Or, "If I had two like you at home, I'd never leave." The kind who says jokes, but watches your eyes when he says them. And my wife, she never flirted back. But she never stopped it either. Not once. Not a single haha, calm down. Not a hey, keep it professional. Not even a subtle redirect. She just let it happen. Let him speak that way. Let him be that man. And I started to realize, maybe that was worse, because silence is not neutral. Silence is a permission slip. And every time she said nothing, it taught him that it was okay, that he could keep going, that she wouldn't object, that she didn't mind. Maybe she didn't. Maybe a part of her liked it, liked the attention, the feeling of being seen, admired, pursued, even lightly. And maybe I understood that. After 20 years, we get used to each other. We forget to flirt, to compliment, to remind the person we love that they're still magnetic. But understanding something doesn't mean I'm okay with it, because she wasn't just letting him flirt. She was letting me disappear. And every time she came home with wine on her breath and someone else's laugh still in her voice, I felt like a ghost in my own life. I wish I could say I confronted her again, that I stood my ground, laid out my feelings, demanded change. But I didn't. I just faded into the background. Because when you start to doubt your own instincts, your voice becomes a whisper. And I whispered for weeks. Every night she came home late, I was awake, not pacing, not texting her angrily, just lying there, pretending to sleep, listening to the sound of her keys, the soft clack of her heels, the way she'd drop her purse on the table, the way she'd sigh as if she'd just left something more exciting behind. Sometimes she'd crawl into bed and say, "You're still up." I'd fake a sleepy smile and mumble, "Not really." Other nights, she wouldn't say anything, just slip under the blanket like I was furniture. And I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, heart hammering, wanting to ask, "Did he make you laugh tonight? Did you wear that perfume because you knew he'd notice? Did you ever think about what it's like to be the man you come home to?" Because that's who I was now. The man she comes home to, not the man she laughs with, not the man she dresses up for, not the man who gets her firsts, the first smile, the first glass of wine, the first real conversation of the evening. I was just the ending, the period at the end of her sentence. And here's the thing, she wasn't cheating. Not really. Not in the classic sense. She wasn't sneaking off to hotels or deleting messages or whispering in dark corners. But somehow that made it worse, because I didn't have a villain to fight, no betrayal to point at, no smoking gun, just a slow withdrawal, a quiet leaving. She was still here physically, but not with me, not really. We'd sit at dinner and she'd talk about her projects, about how her team pulled off another success, about how the boss cracked up when her friend did something funny. And I'd nod, smile, pretend I wasn't counting how many times she mentioned them versus me. And when I tried to bring up something from our life, a funny moment from years ago, a future plan, even a joke, she'd smile politely, like I was someone she liked, but didn't need anymore. I started to feel like the past, like I was holding a photo album while she was chasing new memories. It wasn't malicious. She didn't even realize it was happening. But I did, every day. And the worst part was, I couldn't tell anyone. Because what would I say? My wife called herself a cheap date in a group chat. That's not infidelity. That's not scandalous. That's not enough. But it was enough for me to lose sleep. Enough for me to question what we had. Enough for me to wonder, is this how people fall apart? Not with a bang, but with a joke, a drink, a shrug, a silence. So now I sit with the question that haunts every relationship, drifting quietly toward the edge. What now? Do I bring it up again? Demand answers she already swears she's given? Tell her that even if there was no cheating, there was a shift, a change in energy, attention, intimacy? Or do I let it go? Accept that people evolve, that friendships change, that maybe I am overthinking it? Because here's the worst part. If I hadn't looked at her phone that night, I wouldn't know any of this. Not the flirtatious messages, not the cheap date comment, not the inside jokes or the rituals or the way she fits into that little circle like a woman half her age with something to prove. She never told me. She never hid it, not technically, but she didn't share it either. Not the tone, not the closeness, not the parts that mattered. And I keep wondering, would she have ever told me? Would she have ever said, "Hey, I've gotten really close to my 2 male bosses lately, and one of them likes to flirt with me. I don't flirt back, but I don't stop him either. And last weekend, I called myself a cheap date in our group chat and laughed it off." No, of course she wouldn't, because she knows how it sounds. She knows what it means. Maybe she didn't cross a line, but she knows where the line is. And somehow that's worse, because when someone breaks your trust out of carelessness, it's hurtful. But when they stay just this side of the line intentionally, it's calculated. It's controlled. It's manipulated innocence. She gets to keep the comfort of our life, the security of our marriage, the warmth of our home, and at the same time, enjoy the flirtation, the compliments, the wine-soaked evenings that make her feel 28 again. I'm the man who changes the oil, packs the lunches, shovels the snow. He's the one who tells her she's trouble in a red dress. And I think part of her likes the balance, the emotional safety net of me, and the electric tension of him. So again, what now? Do I fight for this? Try to become the man who used to make her feel special? Do I start texting her in emojis and wine glasses? Do I try to outflirt a man who isn't even competing? Or do I walk away, not because she cheated, but because she already left emotionally, spiritually, and I'm just the last one to admit it? I don't know. Some days I want to confront her all over again. Make her feel what I feel, not with anger, but with clarity. Sit across from her and say, "You didn't cheat, but you stopped choosing me." Other days I just want to disappear. Not leave, just fade. The way she did. Let her come home one night and find a man she doesn't recognize. Not because he changed, but because he finally let go. Because I've realized something. Infidelity isn't always physical. It's where your joy goes. It's where your attention lives. It's where your mind wanders when no one is watching. And in the quiet spaces of her life, in the dress emojis and wine glasses and dark corner jokes, my wife left me behind. So what now? I don't know. But I know this. I didn't deserve silence. I didn't deserve emotional leftovers. I didn't deserve to become the man she comes home to after the fun is over. I deserved to be part of the fun, part of the laughter, part of the life she was still building. And maybe someday, I'll find that again, with her, or without her. But next time, I won't settle for someone who sees me as safe. I'll wait for someone who sees me as everything.